A long time ago, ever since we humans sat around the fire, we have told stories. Our ancestors have told stories to understand the unknown, to deal with the struggles of survival. In this chapter, let's understand the true power of storytelling. We will start with a small narrative tale. Please listen to it carefully. Let's begin. Once upon a time, there was an innocent little girl. She was lost inside a dark, massive forest. All alone in this chilling forest, she was afraid. Her soft little hands were shivering in fear. And now we are back. So my first question for you is, when you were listening to this narration, was your mind visualizing the fictional scene? Was your mind trying to imagine the innocent little girl or the dark, massive forest? If you were listening carefully, your answer would most probably be yes. But why does it happen that while listening to a story, our mind starts visualizing it? The simplistic answer is that our brains are wired that way. When we listen to a gripping story, it triggers the release of oxytocin in our brain. Oxytocin, which is also called the love hormone, pushes us to visualize, connect, and also makes us fall in love with the characters of our story. This is the reason that when your favorite character dies in a movie, television, or a book, for a brief moment, your mind feels as if someone real or close to you has passed away. The brain processes and stores information in the form of stories. We tend to forget data and bullet points, but remember the intricate details of a story. For example, as per data, traveling by plane is much safer than traveling by car. The odds of a plane crash are 1 for every 1.2 million flights. Still, even after knowing this fact, the next time our plane will take off or land, many of us will get nervous and continue to feel that planes are much riskier. An important reason for our inconsistent reaction is that we have seen the harsh visuals and movies with airplane crashes. We have even heard horrifying stories of people who sadly lost their lives in a plane crash. These stories and visuals are so powerful that they have played an important role in forming our behavior. We connect our emotions with these stories. Hence, in this case, even the logical and correct reasoning about airplane journey being much safer cannot make us easily change our mind. This is what makes stories so special, that it has the potential to surpass the logical and data-driven form of communication and can become a part of our behavior itself. With help of stories, you can shape and transform thoughts and beliefs of yourself and others. And this transformational authority of stories is what makes storytelling the most powerful form of communication. In today's time, we all are not mere consumers of information, but we also produce it through our blogs, posts, tweets. This massive flux of information has made it very difficult for any individual or business to attract attention and influence people. Therefore, in this chapter, we will witness an example of how the usual fact and rhetoric-based communication can be elevated with the power of storytelling. Let us assume you want to persuade people for a cause to save tigers from extinction. In a mere fact-based communication, one could say that tigers are classified as endangered. Now, only 3,500 tigers are remaining worldwide. This number is almost 97% lower than 100,000 tigers which roamed the planet a century ago. Hence, we all must come together and save the tiger from extinction. So what do you think? Is this write-up effective? No, it is not effective, mainly because we humans never support a cause like saving the tiger or supporting a political or social viewpoint solely based on facts and logic. We support it because of the emotional connection we feel with that cause. Now let's switch to our favorite, storytelling, and let's narrate a short true story. 31st December 2015, when the world was eagerly waiting for the new year to arrive, that very moment, a weak and hungry baby tigress, whom we call Angel, was searching desperately for food in the vast mountainous terrain of eastern Russia. Just a few days ago, little Angel's mother was shot dead by poachers who sold her skin in the black market. Not realizing her mother's death, the weak baby tigress limped all over the vast area searching for her mother, but sadly she never found her. On New Year's Eve, the weak and hungry baby tigress was searching for food. She was attacked by a pack of wild dogs. She was badly hurt. Her body was bleeding profusely. Thankfully, at that moment, Angel was rescued by a forest officer. The news of her rescue was widely reported all over the world. But as our baby tigress was badly injured, she was fighting for her life. Do you want to know what happened to little Angel? I wish I could tell you that she is alive and grown up. But no, just 6 days later, Angel lost her battle for life. But Angel is not the only one to lose her life. Just like our baby tigress and her mother, almost 97% of the population of tigers has been wiped off in the past 100 years. We need your help to save the tiger, with a goal that no angel will again be orphaned due to poaching. Earlier, when we were communicating facts, tigers were merely numbers in our mind. But in the story, we started connecting, empathizing, and caring about our baby tigress, Angel. In the future lecture, you will learn how to write your own powerful stories. But just remember that once you start expressing these stories behind the numbers and mere facts, even the most mundane data can come to life. Therefore, instead of sales numbers, tell the stories and struggles behind getting those sales. Instead of giving data about pollution, tell stories about people and families affected by pollution. That's when these numbers truly come to life. That's how you can take your communication to the next level. At this stage of the course, some of you might be doubting yourself that you are not a storyteller. You might be thinking that how will I write or tell stories? The truth is, we all are storytellers. Even if you're not aware of it, your brain is already a great storyteller. It creates and narrates stories to you all the time. Even when you're dreaming, your mind is busy creating different stories and scenarios. Therefore, let us quickly test your brain's story-making ability. I will show you a 30-second short film which I call Alphabet H. In this short film, you will find few moving alphabets. Your task is to create a story from these moving alphabets. It is up to you to think of these alphabets as a boy, girl, old, young, poor, rich, whatever your mind imagines. Follow that and create a story or scene from these moving alphabets. If possible, please wear your headphone. And now let's begin with our short film Alphabet H. Now we are back. So tell me, were you able to create a story out of movement of these alphabets? If you were not able to create a story, please go back and watch the video again and try to form your own story. But usually after seeing this video, some of my students say that this short film was about a school bully troubling a new student. The bully runs away when the teacher arrives. While some people say it is a story about a roadside hooligan harassing a young girl. The hooligan runs away when the police arrives. My next question is why most of us were able to create a story or narrative in such a short movie where just a few alphabets were moving. The reason is that your brain has an incredible power to give meaning even to randomness, to understand patterns and attach emotions even with inanimate objects. Therefore, your brain can create your own story even out of such a small thing as movement of objects. That is the reason I said your brain is already a great storyteller. In the rest of the course, I will keep on narrating you newer stories. We will also learn the craft and nuances of storytelling. But starting from now, stop doubting your potential and start considering yourself a wonderful storyteller. With this course, I aim to assist you in becoming the best storyteller that you can. Let's begin that journey by asking the most fundamental question of our course. What is a story? Webster's dictionary defines a story as a narrative account of an event or sequence of events. Furthermore, it is often said that all stories have one thing in common. They have a beginning, middle, and end. But both these definitions are too simplistic in describing a powerful story. For example, if a couple, let's call them Mr. and Mrs. X, visit a movie theater, will that be a story? This activity also has a beginning when both of them leave their house, has a middle when they will watch the movie, and also has an end when Mr. and Mrs. X will come back home. If we go by the definition that story is a narrative account of an event or sequence of events, then this narration of events can also be described as a story. But is this a powerful story? No, it's not. A simple start to finish account of events without any conflict or obstacles is uninteresting. And our goal in this course is to create and tell powerful stories that engage, influence, and connect with our audience. But before we unravel the secrets of a powerful story, it is important to understand one core element of every powerful story. That element is truth. You might be telling a true or a fictional story, but to honestly connect with the audience, the facts, message, or emotions of the story must be true. Even an animated movie like The Lion King, which has talking and singing animals, connects with the audience because of the emotions of sacrifice, love, and bravery shown in the movie can be felt by us. That's what makes the story true for us. Now let us dive deeper and understand what is a powerful story. A powerful story is simply a depiction of a journey where we follow a character or several characters pursuing something against obstacles that keep on increasing. Finally, it all leads up to a culminating conclusion. The end of this journey results in deep and profound transformation of the character. To simplify, we can say a powerful story has 5 key elements: characters, journey, obstacles, conclusion, and transformation. To understand these 5 key elements of a powerful story more clearly, let us first transform our story Mr. and Mrs. X visit a movie theater into a powerful story, and later we will pinpoint each of these 5 key elements we have used in creating that story. So let's begin our story. Mr. and Mrs. X visit a movie theater. After 17 years of being married, the marriage of Mr. and Mrs. X is falling apart. To make things better, their daughter forces them to go out together for a movie. They both agree and reach the movie theater, but there too, both of them behave as if they were mere strangers. No smiles, not a single word is exchanged between them. Feeling miserable, Mr. X steps out of the theater. After a while, when he returns, he witnesses that a large crowd is gathered outside the theater. Smoke is coming from inside. The whole theater is now on fire. Mr. X, without caring for his own life, hurriedly rushes in to save his wife. Inside, Mrs. X too, without caring for her own safety, desperately looks for her husband, feeling worried about him. Soon, the firefighters arrive and thankfully everyone is rescued. Mr. and Mrs. X also narrowly escape the fire. After the uproar, Mr. X goes closer to his wife and holds her trembling hand. They both look into each other's moist eyes, and that moment they both realize how much they still love each other. And now we are back. So this was an example of a powerful story, and now let's break down the 5 key elements of this story. The main characters of this story were Mr. and Mrs. X. The journey was the event of them visiting a movie theater. In the case of obstacles, there were 2 major obstacles in the story. One was the external obstacle of fire in the theater, and there was also an internal obstacle of a marriage falling apart. The conclusion section resolved our external obstacle when both Mr. and Mrs. X got rescued from the fire. And finally, the transformation of the characters occurred when Mr. and Mrs. X realized their love for each other, which also solved our internal conflict. These are the 5 key elements that made our story a powerful story. In future lectures, we will learn more about each one of them. But for now, just remember that the 5 key elements of a powerful story are characters, journey, obstacles, conclusion, and transformation. See you in the next video. Now it is time to learn how you can quickly write powerful stories. In the resources, you will find the Incredible Stories template. Open it and take a look at it. Once you have filled this 1-page template, you will have in your hand a powerful story that can engage, influence, and make connection with any audience. Filling this template can take a few minutes, but to understand all these steps takes time. Hence, the next few lectures are dedicated to gain in-depth knowledge about each point of the template. We will begin with the groundwork section of the template. The section starts with a question, why, which means why you want to tell a story. As our goal is to influence others through our story, it becomes very important to put down the reason why you are telling the story. You can write the reason as motivating people to follow their dreams, or influencing people to join the cause of saving the tiger. However, please keep in mind, the reason for writing a story should not sound like a sales target, like you want to increase sales by 20% through a story, but it must be a deeper thought, as your whole story will be derived from this first thought. Suppose you want to tell a story to get a new client for your artistic design company. Your why statement cannot simply be that you want to get a client, but it should portray a deeper thought. For example, maybe you want to educate clients on how artistic designing can change the fortunes of their company. The next statement you have to write is about the fact or emotional truth behind your why statement. We have previously discussed how all powerful stories have one core element, truth. The truth can be facts like, in the Amazon, around 17% of the forest has been lost just in past 50 years. Or it can be an emotional thought which your audience can relate to, like love, friendship, or following your dreams. The next statement you have to write is, who is the audience of the story? These are the ones whom you want to influence and connect with. Your audience could be students, executives, entrepreneurs, or anyone. Whoever is your audience, just try and be specific. So instead of writing entrepreneurs as your audience, you could write budding entrepreneurs below the age of 35. That's how you can specifically target your audience while writing your story. The next step in our template is also the first element of a powerful story. Characters. Characters are individuals who drive your story forward. The main characters are divided in two parts, protagonist and antagonist. The protagonists are the central characters of your story, whose journey you will narrate. It could be the journey of Jack and Rose in Titanic, or the journey of Tony Stark, who transforms himself to become Iron Man. On the other hand, antagonists are the characters that create obstacles in the journey of our protagonist. But keep in mind, not all stories require a supervillain like Darth Vader or Thanos. Most of the time, the hurdles and problems of everyday life are enough to create obstacles for your protagonist. For example, in the movie The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, the reverse aging disease creates complex challenges in the life of Benjamin Button. Hence, the illness itself becomes the main antagonist of that story. To give you another example about characters, let's get back to our story about the rescue of baby tigress Angel. In that story, our tigress Angel is the central character, thus the protagonist of our story, while the poachers who shot Angel's mother or the wild dogs who tried to kill her are the antagonist and create obstacles in Angel's journey. Finally, at the end of the groundwork section, you will find plot types, but for now, ignore that part. We will have an in-depth look at the plot types in the last section of this course. In this lecture, we have learned more about the groundwork section to create a powerful story. That is, why, fact or emotional truth, audience, and characters. In the next video, we will move towards structuring our actual story and fill the remaining steps of the template. See you in the next lecture. In the previous lecture, we discussed about the groundwork section of our incredible story template. Now we will begin the fun part, as from here, our story will begin. In the template, our story structure is divided into 4 parts: setup, obstacles, conclusion, and finally learnings. In this lecture, we will only discuss the first part, setup. Setup is where you introduce the world of your protagonist to the audience. Hence, this is probably the most important section of your story. If the audience is not interested in the world of your protagonist, they will not pay attention to the rest of the story. Therefore, to engage the audience, you as a storyteller have 2 prime objectives in the setup section. The first objective is try and create instant likability, empathy, or connection between the audience and your protagonist. And the second objective is to make audience visualize the world of your character. Do keep in mind, when you're telling a short story, you will only have few lines to achieve these 2 goals. For example, previously I had narrated this setup. Once upon a time, an innocent little girl was lost inside a dark, massive forest. In this one line, I have called the girl innocent because qualities like innocence, honesty, bravery often make the characters more likable. Moreover, instead of saying she was lost inside a forest, I specifically mentioned the forest as a dark, massive forest, because after hearing these specifics like dark and massive forest, your mind starts visualizing that world. Once these 2 goals of the setup section are achieved, we move to the stage of inflection point. This is the starting point of our main story when the journey of our protagonist begins. At this inflection point, you will raise the most important question in the mind of your audience, which will be only answered at the end of your story. For example, in the Titanic movie, when Rose and Jack meet for the first time, that is the inflection point of the story. This is where the journey of their falling in love begins. That inflection point also raises the central question in the mind of the audience: that will Rose and Jack fall in love, and will they be together forever? The answer of this central question is only given at the end of the movie. To give another example, I will use the reference of my own book, The Singing Panda. The protagonist of my book is a singing panda called Diff, who has never been outside his small village and whom others call as good for nothing, because he is weak and different from the rest of the pandas. At the inflection point of the story, Diff begins a colossal journey to travel far away to the king's palace and achieve his goal of winning the singing competition organized by the king. The central question raised in the mind of the reader at this point is, will Diff win the singing competition and prove others wrong who call him good for nothing? And how will Diff travel this far as he is too weak and has never seen the outside world? All these answers are only given at the end of the book. So please keep in mind, the central question that you will raise at this inflection point is the reason people will eagerly listen to the rest of your story. And trust me, this central question is so powerful that people can wait for a very long time to see the question get resolved or answered. For example, in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, people went through 3 movies to witness one single ring be destroyed. Or the sitcom How I Met Your Mother ran for 9 seasons before revealing who was the actual mother character. But the inflection point does not necessarily has to be too dramatic. It can be as simple as daughter of Mr. and Mrs. X forcing her parents to go and watch a movie. But as a listener, we already know that marriage of Mr. and Mrs. X is falling apart. So the question this inflection point raises in the listener's mind is, will this movie date bring Mr. and Mrs. X back together? To conclude, this was all about setup. In the next couple of videos, we will cover the rest of the structure point by point. See you in the next lecture. Now we move to the longest section of any story, obstacles. The obstacles can be defined as conflicts, problems, or roadblocks in the journey of the protagonist. For example, in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, most of the 9 hours of the trilogy were spent facing and resolving obstacles. But why obstacles are so important for any story? We humans often talk about world peace. We all desire to live in a perfect world filled with no misery, problems, or sufferings. But contrary to our noble thoughts, most of the time we find a story without obstacles or conflicts not that appealing or simply boring. For example, in the story where the little girl is lost inside a dark massive forest, what if that very moment her parents arrive at the spot and without any obstacle or problem, all of them safely return back home and the story ends? Will you call this an interesting story? No, you won't, because as a listener, your mind is already expecting the obstacles that our little girl might have to face and overcome as she is lost all alone in the forest. So our real question should be why? Why we subconsciously expect obstacles in a story? The reason for this is life itself. We all know the world can be a cruel place filled with innumerable obstacles and problems. The problems faced by the character of a story makes us relate to our own problems, our own fears, and that's how these characters keep us engaged in that story. Therefore, obstacles are the lifeblood that keeps on moving our story forward while keeping the audience engaged, as they now subconsciously want to see the resolution of these obstacles. Now let us dive deeper and learn more about obstacles. Basically, obstacles can be divided into 2 types, internal and external. Internal obstacles are the intangible emotional conflicts in the journey of our protagonist. For instance, our protagonist, let's call him Andy, who has a fear of public speaking. This will be his internal conflict, especially when the goal of Andy is to win the national election. On the other hand, external obstacles are tangible physical conflicts in the journey of our protagonist. Continuing with the story of Andy, what if Andy now has to generate $1 million in funding to be eligible to run in the election? Generating that money will be his external obstacle. Like in our story, Mr. and Mrs. X go to a movie theater. The internal obstacle was that the marriage of Mr. and Mrs. X was falling apart, while the external obstacle was the fire inside the movie theater. The next point in the template is the resolution of the obstacle. The resolution depends on the duration of your story. If you are writing a novel or a screenplay, do resolve the smaller obstacles faced by your protagonist and then move on to the next. But in case you are narrating a short story, you can omit this part. For example, in Titanic, when Jack is invited to the first class deck for dinner, amongst other obstacles, now he also needs formal attire to attend the first class banquet. That problem was instantly resolved when Mrs. Brown lends him the formal attire of her son. Moving to the next step of escalation. Don't consider escalation as one single point. You can extend it or reduce it as per the duration of your story. But do remember, your job as a writer is to keep on escalating the obstacles for your protagonist. I call this section as the Murphy's Law section, where everything that can go wrong will go wrong for your protagonist. For example, in Jurassic Park, when Dr. Grant is stuck with kids, the automated cars stop, the lights go off, computers stop functioning, electrical fences stop working, they were attacked by T-Rex. So basically everything that could go wrong went wrong. And this is your prime job as a writer, to throw as many obstacles as you can in the journey of your protagonist. And finally, we reach the all is lost phase. This is the point where the stakes are the highest and there is no hope left for the character to reach the goal of his journey. For example, in Interstellar, when the character of Cooper jumps into a black hole, that was the all is lost phase of the story. When all the hope of Cooper returning to his daughter is gone. This is the phase where the protagonist of our story gathers courage to survive a bit longer. So this was all about obstacles. See you in the next video, where we will talk about how we can effectively conclude our story to make a lasting impact. We are here to create and tell powerful stories that engages, connects and influences our audience to take action. In this chapter, we will first witness how we can connect with our audience through a powerful conclusion of our story. It is often said, all is well that ends well. But as we are storytellers, many times a sad ending is much better for our story. For example, if William Shakespeare would have kept Romeo and Juliet alive at the conclusion stage of the story, then the eternal love story certainly won't have been that impactful. Therefore, in our incredible story template, we will move towards concluding our story. This is the final stage, where the main questions raised at the inflection point of our story gets answered. For example, at the conclusion stage in the movie Interstellar, we as a viewer find out about the mystery of black hole, and we also witness how Cooper finally meets his daughter. Moreover, at this conclusion stage in Titanic, the writers reveal to us that Jack and Rose will not be together, as Jack sacrifices his life for Rose. To give another example of the conclusion stage, in our previously discussed story of Andy, who has a fear of public speaking but still wants to win the national election, here in this conclusion stage, we will finally reveal to the audience whether Andy won the election or not. Now let's move to the next point, transformation. The transformation is the impact of the journey on your protagonist, how our character has changed and evolved after taking part in the long journey of our story. Transformation is important because it shows the growth of our protagonist. For example, in the end of Titanic, Rose transforms herself. She becomes independent, and as she had promised Jack, she gets married, has kids. But even after all these years, she still loves Jack. Or in the Andy's election story. Even if we conclude that he lost the election, still after the journey filled with obstacles, we can show him that he is now a confident public speaker and has overcome his fears. Transformation of your protagonist truly connects with the audience. It makes your protagonist more alive and real, as the audience has now witnessed your protagonist grow and transform in front of them. And this is how you can develop the deeper connection of the audience with your story and characters. The conclusion and transformation of your protagonist is what makes your story truly memorable. But our one final aim is still remaining: to influence our audience. So before we do that, let's move to the groundwork section of our story template and quickly fill it up. To give an example, let us suppose you are a couples therapist and you want to tell a story to influence married clients to realize their true feelings for each other before it is too late and give their failing marriage another chance. This will be your why statement. Moving ahead, based on your experience as a couples therapist, you believe that the emotional truth behind your why statement is sometimes in between arguments and differences, many of us start thinking that the relationship is almost over. But at the time of grave danger, we realize our true love and the importance of our partner. For this purpose, we have already written the story Mr. and Mrs. X Go to the Movie Theater. Now, after narrating your married clients the story of Mr. and Mrs. X, where after facing grave danger, they both realize their love for each other. Now, you want to influence them to take the desired action. To achieve this task, we will move towards the final section of our template, learnings. And here too, you will find the same points we have just written in the groundwork section. While narrating your story, you just have to logically connect the transformation of your story with facts and emotional truth, which you have already written, and then complete everything by linking it to the call to action, which is your why statement as the desired outcome of your story. For example, in our Mr. and Mrs. X story, after narrating these words, when Mr. and Mrs. X look into each other's moist eyes, they both realize how much they still love each other. At this stage, you as a couples therapist can directly move to narrate the emotional truth behind your story, which we have already written in the groundwork section. Therefore, just like Mr. and Mrs. X, sometimes in between arguments and differences, many of us start thinking that the relationship is almost over, and then you can narrate the complete emotional truth statement. And finally, just rephrase the why statement that I want you to realize your true feeling for each other before it's too late and try and give your marriage another chance. And with this final step, we conclude our in-depth look at the incredible story template. In the next lecture, we will create a full-fledged powerful story from scratch just by using our template. So see you in the next video. The goal of this exercise is to run through the writing thought process of drafting a complete story. Our task for this lecture is to create a unique story that influences parents to support and motivate their kids in failure. So this will be our why statement. Now, it's time to research facts. As per NCBI global data, 16 youngsters in the age group of 10 to 19 commit suicide every hour. Many of them commit this act due to failure in their exams. We can make this as our fact statement. The next part is defining the audience of our story, who will be the parents of youngsters. Now we will move to develop our protagonist. As we are trying to address the issue of kids and youngster suicide, we will make our protagonist a 12-year-old student. Let's call him Little Johnny. In the incredible story template next to the protagonist, you will also find internal obstacles and traits written. This is our subjective call. We can develop internal obstacles and special traits of our protagonist, which will give more depth to our character. To develop this, let's wear our thinking caps. As per research, some youngsters feel burdened by the expectations of their parents. Therefore, we will make this burdened by expectations as an internal obstacle of little Johnny. To take this forward, we can also assume that little Johnny's parents are successful and so they also want their son to excel in school. Let's make Johnny's parents successful doctors who are too busy in their work. Hence, Johnny often feels lonely. To give further depth to our character, let us give a small trait to Johnny. What if Johnny loves to draw and has a small drawing book where he draws his imagination whenever he feels lonely? Yes, now our protagonist is shaping up, moving towards the antagonist section. Just remember that antagonist is the one who creates obstacles in the journey of our protagonist. To make the story engaging, we will throw as many obstacles as we can in the journey of our little Johnny. Therefore, our antagonist for this story will be Johnny's parents, his class teacher, the school principal, and also classmates. With this, we have completed the groundwork of our story. Congratulations! Now I will quickly narrate the entire story of little Johnny, covering the story structure of our template. Please pay a close attention to the text that will appear across the video, describing the stages of the story we are in. So let's begin the story. This is the story of 12-year-old little Johnny. His parents were rich, successful doctors, but sadly had little time for their child. In the big, lavish house of his parents, little Johnny would often sit alone in his room and sketch the trees outside his window. One day in school, his class teacher angrily handed Johnny his mark sheet. The teacher started yelling, "You have failed again, Johnny. I have had enough. Go to the principal's office." Little Johnny silently leaves the class as some of his classmates laugh at his failure. Later, inside the principal's office, the principal reprimands the little boy. Little Johnny keeps his head down and stays silent. At night, Johnny shows his mark sheet to his parents. After reading his poor marks, both of them start scolding the little boy, telling little Johnny how he does not work hard, how he does not give efforts, asking again and again for the reason of his failure. But all this while, little Johnny does not say a single word. So, in anger, his father locks Johnny in his room. Feeling ashamed of his failure, little Johnny finally starts crying, and in anger, he tears his precious drawing book into pieces. In the morning, little Johnny's parents open his room. There they find out little Johnny has cut his wrist. His whole bed is now drenched in blood. Little Johnny is now dead. On the ground, his parents find little Johnny's torn drawing book. Inside, there were sketches of Johnny playing in the park with his mom and dad. Seeing these drawings of their child that moment, they both realize how they have failed to be with their son. They cryingly wish if their son was alive now, they would make things better. They would not let their little Johnny go away. But sadly, little Johnny is not alone. Across the world, over 16 youngsters commit suicide every hour. Over 16 families are destroyed every hour. My only request to you as a parent is never burden your child with expectation. Listen to them, motivate them, especially in their failures, because that's when they need you the most. Don't let your child become another little Johnny. With this, we conclude our story, where you have witnessed the thought process and structure of writing your own fictional story. We ended this story with the transformation of Johnny's parents. This was intentionally done as our key audience is parents of youngsters, and we want them to empathize with the grief of Johnny's parents, which actually causes the transformation in the audience which we have intended. In the next section, we will work on creating true stories about your own life and also others. So see you in the next lecture. We have often seen in events like TED Talks, award shows, speeches of politicians, how the speakers wow their audience, how they get a standing ovation simply by narrating their own life story. The next time when you narrate your own life story in front of an audience, do you want to receive a similar overwhelming response? If your answer is yes, then this whole section is created just for that purpose. In the previous section, we have worked on creating fictional stories, but your journey as a storyteller is incomplete if you cannot tell your own life story, because the most powerful communication device you have to engage, connect and influence your friends, colleagues or your audience is to tell the journey of your life. We will start with a small exercise. I will narrate you 2 storytelling scenarios. You just have to decide which story will connect and influence you the most. In the first scenario, a business tycoon is narrating a story about his great achievements. He is boasting about becoming a billionaire at age of 25, the youngest billionaire in his country. Later, he goes on to say how thousands of employees older than him work under him and how he alone has made all this possible. Now let's move to the second scenario. What if the same business tycoon narrates the story about the struggles he went through before he became a billionaire? In front of the audience, he tells the story about the time when he thought of giving up, about the time when he lost belief in himself, and later he speaks about how he motivated himself to strive forward, and after overcoming all the failures, he finally achieved success. Now let me ask you, which storytelling scenario is more effective? In which scenario will the audience feel more connected to the narrator's story and life? Most of my students find the second scenario of storytelling more effective. But why? Why the impact of the first story, which was only about his achievements, not as effective as the story of the struggles behind those achievements? The reason is the same as what we have previously discussed. We all know life is not a rosy picture. It can be harsh with massive ups and downs. Hence, in comparison with a happy life story with no problems, a life journey filled with struggles and failures will be considered truer and hence connect more with the audience. But is it easy to talk about your failures, the bad phases of your life in front of an audience filled with strangers? No, it's not. Therefore, before creating and telling your own stories, you have to start by achieving the mindset of a storyteller. Here are the few points you must keep in mind. If you want to influence others by your life story, you have to first honestly look within yourself. You should prepare your mind to objectively analyze your own life, your failures and success, your best memories and your moments of pain and sorrow. And the second thing you have to do is be ready to feel vulnerable. When you tell your personal story, your emotions and life will be exposed in front of others. Initially, you might feel helpless as your story might display the vulnerable side of your personality in front of the audience. Also, the fear of being embarrassed, fear of what others might think, the fear of appearing weak might also run through your mind. If you can overcome this and develop your mindset, then you are on your way to become a wonderful storyteller who is not afraid of feeling vulnerable, because at the time of utter vulnerability is when the listeners too start lowering their guard and begin truly listening to you, connecting with you. This is when you will truly become a great storyteller. In the next lecture, we will start discovering great, interesting stories of your own life with the help of an awesome exercise. So see you in the next lecture. In the previous lecture about developing the mindset for storytelling, the first point I asked you to do was to honestly look within yourself. In this lecture, we will implement that first point through an awesome exercise. As we had discussed earlier, great stories are made when we narrate the struggles, failures, and successes of our life in all its glory. But still, most of you might think that your life is not interesting enough because you have lived a comparatively stable life, not filled with many ups or downs, or you are too young to experience life to its fullest. Thinking such a way is not right. Life itself is filled with so many layers that an 8-year-old too can also narrate a compelling life story filled with little ups and downs and still have the same impact as a story of an aged person. However, the difficulty most of us face is identifying the highs and lows of our life, identifying the compelling stories which probably we have also forgotten with time. But don't worry, by the end of this lecture, you will have in your hand a list of compelling, defining moments of your own life that will help you in forming an engaging and influencing life story. All you have to do is just believe that each one of us, whatever age or experience, we all have a compelling story to tell. To begin our exercise, please open the Life Snapshot sheet from the resource section. There you will find two columns. One is about the struggles or negative moments and another is about achievements or positive moments. All you have to do is very briefly write down and categorize the important moments of your life in one of these two columns. On the positive side, you have to note down the times when you felt truly happy, when you achieved something you felt special or experienced success. While on the negative side, you have to note down the times when you were devastated, when you faced setbacks or experienced failures. Now let's start our activity where I will help you fill your own life snapshot. But first, please take a printout of this life snapshot sheet or draw these two columns on a piece of paper. Grab a pen and find a peaceful spot where you will not be disturbed for at least the next 10 minutes. Also, if you can, wear your headphones and then listen to the rest of this video. Pause this video now and only start it when you are ready with all this. Are you ready with paper and a pen, ready to fill the most important sheet of your life, which will cover your life in a snapshot? Please note, this is a very difficult exercise. It hurts to reimagine the failures, setbacks, or the pains of the past. You must get ready to become vulnerable. So now, after all the instructions, put the pen and paper to the side and please gently close your eyes and keep it closed until I tell you to open it. Just concentrate on the soothing background music. The music is calming you. You are feeling relaxed. Now start visualizing as if you were sitting inside a large movie theater. The theater is dark. You are sitting on a comfortable seat. You look around. There are few people in the movie theater. There is a big screen in front of you. The screen is dark. A movie is going to start shortly. You hear a loud rhythmic sound and the movie starts. On the big screen, the title of the movie is your full name. You can see it written on the screen. And then you see yourself on the screen when you were a child. Gradually, you see memorable moments of your childhood playing on the big screen. You also see the first day of your school. Inside, you can feel the same way as you felt on the first day of your school. Now, the visuals on the big screen show you random happy moments of your entire life. You can see yourself smiling, talking with others, feeling content, feeling calm. Keep on visualizing the happy moments of your entire life. Your school, your college, your first job, the moment when you felt you have achieved something, when you felt satisfied. For the next 30 seconds, I will be quiet. You just keep on seeing those happy memories on the big screen, the wonderful, magical moments of your life. Now suddenly you start feeling that your fingers are getting colder. The movie theater is now very cold. Now on the big screen you see yourself sitting alone, feeling lonely. Abruptly you start witnessing these sad moments of your life. On the big screen you might see yourself crying. You can see the moments when you felt sad, when you felt devastated, when you faced setbacks, when people ill-treated you, when you experienced failures. For the next 30 seconds, I will keep quiet, let your mind wander and show you key moments or failures of your life. Keep on imagining. Now slowly the lights of the movie theater will start. Just take 2 deep breaths right now and gently open your eyes. Look around and take another deep breath. If you need a short break, you can pause the video right now. Now just grab the pen and paper and start dividing everything you just saw on the big screen into positive moments and negative moments of your life. Don't think of it that you are reimagining your life. Just think that you are segregating the moments of the movie you just saw. For example, if in the theater you saw the time when you failed your exam in the 10th grade, then write failed exam in 10th grade in the negative side. Or if you saw the moment when you received an award, write that down on the positive side. Try to remember and fill as many moments as you can, because these are the moments that have shaped you and made you who you are right now. You can also do this exercise again. Just focus on filling as many big or small moments of your life in both the columns. Take your time, and only when you have completed your life snapshot sheet, then only move towards the next lecture. Best of luck. In school, every morning, the first thing our teachers used to ask us was about the homework. So let me continue the tradition and ask, have you completed your life snapshot sheet? If not completed, or if you have only a few entries, then please go back to the previous video and complete your life snapshot sheet filled with your big and small moments. From this sheet, we will derive multiple powerful stories for you. But before we derive stories from your life snapshot sheet, please open the story journal sheet from the resources section. This is the sheet where you will catalog all your stories. You can take multiple printouts of this sheet or replicate everything on a piece of paper. Let me quickly explain you the story journal. The first point we have to fill in this sheet is the summary of the story. Next, we have to mention the audience for whom this story might be relevant. And finally, as we want to tell stories that influences others, you have to write down the call to action or learnings for your audience after they listen to your story. Before doing that, first open and glance through your completed life snapshot. You have to start by looking at the events of your life objectively, just as any other story, and try and connect these different events that led to a positive transformation in your life. For example, in your negative moments column, you have written that a school teacher often used to call you stupid, which had an emotional impact on your life. Moving towards your positive moments, you have written that you invented and created something which was memorable moment for you. Now it's very easy to derive a story from these entries. All you have to do is combine these two events. In the story journal, you can write the story summary as: a child who was called stupid by his teacher transforms himself to become an inventor and creator. Doesn't that sound interesting? In the next point, mention the audience for whom your story will be relevant. In this case, you can tell this story to young students. The final point you should add is learning or call to action of the story. As stated previously, we are here to create powerful stories that influence others. So once you know the audience, you have to decide what will be their takeaway from your story. In this story, learning for the audience of students could be a simple thought like: don't let others' opinion pull you down and make your own path. With this, we complete the first story in the journal. If you want this summary into a full story, then use the incredible story template, which by now you are well aware, and form a longer version filled with ups and downs. By the way, the story about a child who was called stupid by his teacher and who later became an inventor is the true story of Thomas Edison. To make things further clear, let me give another example of finding your transformational life stories. For example, in your negative moments, you have written that you were once fired from a job, and on the positive side, you have written that you got happy when you first started your own business. The summary by adding these two events together will be: a young man who was fired from his job transforms himself to start and grow his own business. Our audience for this story could be budding entrepreneurs. And learning from this story for the audience of budding entrepreneurs could be: an obstacle can also be an opportunity, because if you were not fired from the job, probably you would not have started your own business. And with this, we end our second story listing in the story journal. By the way, this story about a young man who was fired from a job is the true story of Walt Disney. Now, this is what you have to do. Analyze your life snapshot and create as many big or small positive transformational stories as you can and add them to your story journal. Once you complete the story journal, you will have in your hand a gold mine of personal stories where you will know which stories you have to reveal to which audience, and thus you will become a wonderful storyteller. In the last section of this course, we will be creating a detailed story based on the life of someone famous. But in the next lecture, you will learn how to effectively narrate a story. So see you in the next lecture. Till now, we have learned how to create fictional stories and true stories based on real life. But now let's discuss how we can enhance the narration of our stories, which will provide the final punch to our storytelling. We will first start with the 3 S's of great storytelling. The first one is silence. A long time ago, a Roman scholar once said, "Silence is one of the great arts of conversation," and it certainly is. For example, in the story of Little Johnny, we could have narrated the scene like this. In the morning, little Johnny's parents open his room. There they find out little Johnny has cut his wrist. Little Johnny is now dead. We could narrate the same by using the power of silence. In the morning, little Johnny's parents open his room. There they find out little Johnny has cut his wrist. Little Johnny is now dead. A few milliseconds of silence can do wonders for your storytelling. It can create a mystery or give time to the audience to visualize the scene. The next S of great storytelling is suspense. When your listener questions you about the story, that what happens next or how will the story end, that is when you should believe you have created a wonderful story filled with suspense. To achieve this suspense, you must have unresolved obstacles and an engaging question raised at the inflection point. All this we have discussed in the incredible story template chapters. Other than that, your job as a storyteller is to keep the audience guessing about what will happen next, because that is when they will more intently listen to you. Our final S of great storytelling is simplicity. We are here not to learn how to write an extensive novel, but we are here to learn how we can effectively write and narrate our stories. Therefore, for us, it is better to keep the language and narration of our stories simple by usage of casual, everyday words, simple hand and body gestures, as you want your audience to only focus on your story and not get distracted by extensive body language or difficult words. As Einstein once said, "Out of clutter, find simplicity." So your job is to make your story simple to grasp and not make it overcomplicated with too many unnecessary characters or point of views. Other than the 3 S's of storytelling, we will also focus on 2 additional points. The first one is to add emotions to your story. The first tool for adding emotions to your story is your voice. Let the tone of your voice set the mood of the story. Based on the type of story you are narrating, try and modulate your voice and emotions as per the scene you are narrating. For example, if it is a sad scene, make your voice sound as if you too are feeling miserable with the sad news. Other than voice, it is a good idea to express the character's inner emotions, what he or she might be feeling or thinking during an action. For example, a poor boy in torn clothes saw a grand palace and stopped. Standing behind the elevated gates, he imagined he and his mother living in the majestic house and wearing new expensive clothes. This little description of the imagination and inner emotion of the character gives more depth to your character, and therefore the audience will feel more connected to your story. Moving to the 5th point, try and make your listeners visualize your story as if they are seeing it live. Many novelists do that by adding vivid descriptions in their story. But as we are here for narration of short stories, we don't have the luxury of time to be too vivid. Therefore, a few lines or usage of few additional words can do the trick for us. Like in our previous example, instead of saying it as forest, we narrated the story as dark, massive forest. So just use of few additional words can make your listeners visualize your story as if they are seeing it live. So to conclude, just keep these 5 points in mind the next time you're narrating your story. But other than these points, also have confidence in your story and yourself, because your belief in yourself will be the key of you becoming a great storyteller. See you in the next section. After rigorously learning in the previous 3 sections, you have reached the final section of our course. I am happy you have come this far. I want to begin this lecture by asking a question we have asked before: what we mean when we say a powerful story. As you have previously learned, a powerful story is a depiction of a character's journey who is pursuing something against increasing obstacles, which finally leads to a culminating conclusion and a transformation. For example, let's develop a new story. We will call it the story of Raj and Julie. The story is about a man named Raj who travels to another country to meet his online friend Julie for the first time. As per the definition, our story is about the journey of Raj and the obstacles he would face to meet Julie. But in this statement, we have not stated why Raj is traveling to another country to meet Julie. Is he in love, in danger, or something else? Also, how he will travel to another country. Will Raj go by plane or by sea, or he will enter illegally? These questions are answered by what we call as plot. Simply speaking, if story is the journey of the character, then plot describes the specific events that make up the journey. And in the world with millions and billions of stories, some of you might be surprised to know that there are only 7 plots. 99% of all stories can be categorized at their most basic level into one of these 7 plots. In the incredible story template, these plots are written, and therefore in this lecture you will learn each of those 7 plots using our story of Raj and Julie as an example. The first plot is called Overcoming the Monster or the Underdog plot. This is often referred to as David versus Goliath plot, where the protagonist takes on a mighty and powerful antagonist. For example, in the story of Raj and Julie, our plot can be that Julie is kidnapped by a powerful drug lord, and Raj now has to travel to a foreign country and rescue Julie, his online friend, from the clutches of the drug lord, the powerful antagonist. Our second plot type is Rags to Riches. This plot is often used in motivational stories, where the protagonist begins the journey in poverty and hardships and then gathers wealth or makes a name for himself. A good example can be the movie Pursuit of Happiness. Other than that, in romantic or comedies, Rags to Riches plot signifies characters entering into a different world from the one they have always known. For example, movies like Aladdin or Cinderella. Going back to the story of Raj and Julie, our rag to riches plot could be that Raj comes from a poor family. He has fallen in love with Julie, but he is not aware that Julie is daughter of the richest person in the world. So in this plot, Raj will enter in a different unknown world than the one he already knows. Moving to the third plot, which is Quest. This is the plot where the protagonist takes a journey for something very urgent. In this journey, protagonist must overcome obstacles to complete the quest. In our story, it could be that Raj takes a journey to meet Julie to confess his love for her as she is getting married in 1 week. The time limit of 1 week makes the journey of Raj very urgent, and now he has to overcome all the obstacles to finally confess his love for her. The fourth plot is Voyage and Return. This is the plot where protagonist who goes on a journey, and regardless of success or failure, the protagonist learns from the journey and returns back home as an evolved character with newer knowledge. This plot might look similar to Quest, but the main difference is that the Quest plot focuses on urgency of the journey and it ends when the object of the quest is attained, while Voyage and Return focuses on return and change of character. In our story, the plot could be Raj is in love love with Julie and therefore ignores people and love around him. He finally meets Julie, but she is not how he imagined her. Therefore, after returning home, Raj becomes a changed person, now more willing to appreciate the people and love around him. So transformation of Raj is what is necessary in this plot. The return and improvement in character is what makes this plot voyage and return. Now let's understand the fifth plot type, which is rebirth. This is the plot where the protagonist changes to become a better person, resulting in a happy ending. Getting back to our story, what if Raj is a criminal whose goal of meeting Julie is to steal money from her, but after meeting Julie, he slowly changes into a better human being, finally resulting in a happy ending with Raj and Julie falling in love and getting married. Our sixth plot is tragedy. Tragedy means a very sad, unfavorable ending which makes the listener feel bad for the protagonist. Here the protagonist has an irredeemable flaw and makes an irredeemable mistake, causing their downfall. For example, Raj is already married and has kids, but still he has fallen in love with Julie. His journey to meet Julie will lead to a very sad ending for Raj. A similar example of a married protagonist falling in love or feeling attraction for someone else can also be seen in the novel Anna Karenina, where the protagonist Anna, who is married and has a son, gets attracted to another man. Now let's talk about our final plot, which is comedy. This plot does not mean stand-up comedy, but in comedy plot type, the journey of protagonist becomes increasingly complicated with misunderstandings or adverse circumstances, but still not dark enough to be threatening, which finally is miraculously resolved through a single revelation. For example, Julie is Raj's next door neighbor, but due to misunderstanding, Raj thinks that she lives in another country. To meet her, Raj travels all the way to that country, where more misunderstandings occur when Raj thinks that the wife of a big crazy politician is his Julie. In the end, everything is resolved when Raj realizes who is the real Julie. With this, we end our journey of exploring 7 important plot types, but also keep in mind your story can have multiple plots or just have part of a basic plot. For now, the only task I will tell you is to memorize these 7 plots, which are underdog, rags to riches, voyage and return, quest, rebirth, tragedy and comedy, and also find one movie or book for each plot type. For example, quest plot type was seen in Lord of the Rings. In the next videos, we will take some real life examples and create stories for them, as I am trying to explain you the practical usage of storytelling. So, see you in the next lecture. Now it's time to see how you can use your storytelling skills in different real life scenarios. The motive with such exercise is to open your mind towards the possibilities of storytelling, and also I want you to master the flow of creating your own stories using our template. Most of us have seen boring financial data or presentations talking about the rise and fall in sales or profits, but such presentations disconnect themselves from the human story, the struggle behind these numbers. To develop our story, let's open our incredible story template and begin with the groundwork section. For this example, let's assume you are the CFO of a company called Power Gym. The company operates a chain of gymnasiums at multiple locations. You have to present the quarterly financial statement to analysts, investors and shareholders. These will be the audience of our story, but this time due to COVID and lockdown, the financial numbers are bad. Your company has made a huge loss. Your task is to convince the audience that the worst is over and the company is now better prepared to face the changing environment, and this will be our why statement. The fact statement will be the actual financial information that you want to share. Information about how badly gymnasiums world over have been hit by COVID, and also steps taken by your company to manage the change. Possibly your company started delivering online fitness classes, while the true emotions could be the zeal of your team to keep on operations running despite major hardship. Now it's time to develop our protagonist. Our protagonist will be you, the CFO of Power Gym. Before that, a quick note: when you are telling a story about yourself, avoid making yourself a superhero or the ultimate savior. It is also important to talk about the contributions of others. Getting back to our story, the antagonist in this case will be the Mother Nature or COVID-19. Our plot type will be rebirth, as after going through the uncertain journey of facing tough times, the company has transformed itself and adapted to changing times. With this, we have completed the groundwork of our story. Now we will quickly structure our story without going too much into details, as our main aim is to show the possibilities of storytelling and also understand the flow of creating stories. So in setup, you can start by narrating your daily routine as the CFO. Give a glimpse of the working environment inside a gymnasium. Then the story moves to the inflection point. Lockdown is announced due to COVID. All the gymnasiums had to be closed. You can describe how the company changed due to the lockdown. Then we will start with obstacles. Maybe one of the trainers had COVID and therefore many of your trainers were quarantined. You as a company had to take care of them. Now moving to escalate. With no revenue, it was getting difficult to pay salaries. You hoped that soon the gyms will start. Now all is lost moment. People started cancelling their memberships. Gyms were still not starting, and now probably you had to start removing your staff and close down few gymnasiums. In conclusion, you can tell how group of trainers suggested the idea of delivering online fitness classes. With the adoption of online classes, your company is now able to pay salaries and is also now attracting newer members. The transformation will be of your company itself, evolving from a location-based gymnasium to a more fluid online model. Later, you can state the facts and emotions that despite the harsh impact of the lockdown on gymnasiums, you were able to generate the financial performance, and also speak about the resolve and effort of your team that has made your company survive this pandemic. Finally, you can conclude the story with your why statement, stating that the worst is over and the company is better prepared to face the changing environment. This is the way, instead of stating boring data and stats, you can narrate a powerful, compelling story that engages and influences your audience. So, see you in the next lecture. In this example, we will use our storytelling skill in an investment pitch, which can help a business owner stand out from others, influence the investors, and can even convert your dream startup into reality. So let us start with our story assumption. Suppose you want to create an Uber-like app for ambulances called Find Life. The idea sounds fine, but for the real story punch, let's open our incredible story template. Here, instead of writing why statement, this time we could mention the problem our business will solve. The problem is not getting timely ambulance at the time of critical need. Moving to facts, as per reports, in developing countries, more than 50% of heart attack cases reach hospital late. Thousands of other patients die due to unavailability of ambulances every year. Our audience, we already know, are the investors. Protagonist of our story will be the founder of the startup Find Life, which in this case is you. Our antagonist will be the lacking medical system, especially in developing countries. In the startup presentation, it will be a good idea to use the quest plot as your company is still on the path to achieve its mission or solve the problem. Now briefly, let us fill the structure of the story. What if in the setup stage you start with narrating your childhood, your relation with a close relative, she telling you stories. Moving to the inflection point. This is where we start emotional connection between your life and your startup. What if you narrate a story how your close relative had passed away due to unavailability of ambulances. This incident has made you strive towards stopping such deaths which can be averted. You later narrate that after completing education and gaining experience, you wanted to start your own Uber-like app for ambulances called Find Life, but you lacked funds to start the venture. This will be your first obstacle. It can be quickly resolved. You can state how you invested all your savings or sold your bike or borrowed funds from family. Now it's time to escalate the obstacle. After completing the app, you get a call from authorities that your app needs government approval. Later, the all is lost moment could be you apply for the permission but your request is rejected. Also, Union of Ambulance Operators decline to join your service. Your whole venture is in the verge of failure and this will be the lowest point of your story. Moving to conclusion, you can begin with the survival moment. How instead of losing hope, your company applied again for the approval and got it approved this time. Also, how you, along with your team, convinced the ambulance workers to join your app. Finally, moving to transformation, you can state how your technology is helping the ambulance drivers and patients, how your app is saving lives. Now it's time to tell the facts that how still 50% of heart attack cases reach hospital late, and then appeal to the emotions of the investors, how you want no other family be shattered by losing a loved one due to delay of ambulance. And finally, repeat the problem, how your app will resolve the issue of not getting timely ambulance at the time of critical need. You can end your sentence to the investors like, "Help me in this journey so we can save lives." This is how a seemingly boring pitch to the investors can be transformed into an engaging and emotional story which engages the investors and makes a startup dream turn into reality. So, see you in the next lecture. We have till now converted dull financial presentations and investment pitches into powerful stories. But can a story also help you crack an interview for your dream job? As we keep on insisting that storytelling is the most powerful communication skill, hence it certainly can help you in getting your dream job. You just have to tell it as a conversation, not make it sound like something you have written or prepared, and make it short. So let's begin with drafting a fictional story again using our template. We will begin with why you want to tell a story, but as stated earlier, don't make it as blatant as writing the story to get a job, but it should be a deeper thought, like convincing the interview panel that you have leadership and pressure handling skill sets. Emotional truth can be your point of view that a leader must be honest with his team and lead by example. Audience, as we have already discussed, are the panel of interviewers. Again, you are the protagonist and the antagonist can be a difficult client or a difficult project. This time, let us use the voyage and return plot. We could make the plot as, after handling a difficult project, how you became more confident in handling work pressure and also became a better leader. Now, all the groundwork of our story is complete. Let's briefly structure our story. In the setup stage, we can start with narrating about a normal Friday evening. You and your team are almost ready to leave and have also made plans for the weekend. Moving to the inflection point stage, you get a call from a big client whom your company had previously pitched. He is ready to give you the work, but only if your company can deliver the project by Monday morning. The first obstacle will be convincing your team to cancel their plans and work in office for the whole weekend. This is resolved when you honestly share with your team the importance of this client and ask for their opinion. They volunteer to work on the project for the whole weekend. Now it's time to escalate the obstacles. The project is getting too complicated. The whole night passes and not much work is done. You can now share about your role, how you streamlined everything at that time and acted as a support for the team. Moving to the all is lost stage. On Monday morning, the project is ready to be delivered, but the computer crashes. All the project data is lost. Your entire team panics. The entire effort has now been wasted. We can now conclude the story with a happy ending that somehow a member of your team retrieves the data and just in time you send the project to the client. The client is very happy with the output. Now, as we are in the voyage and return plot, the learnings of the protagonist from this journey becomes very important. Therefore, talk about how earlier you doubted your skills, but this incident has given you confidence and self-belief that you can face any challenge and also take your team along. Finally, you can elaborate the emotional truth we had already written in the groundwork section, that a leader must be honest with his team and lead by example. Then any major obstacle can be resolved. In the end, just rephrase the why statement that you will be an asset for the company with your strong leadership and pressure handling skill sets. With this, we have just created a powerful story which can land you your dream job. Now it's time to create the final story of this course. This time, we will motivate people by narrating them an inspiring life story. Motivational stories usually follow two plots. One is the underdog story, how one protagonist takes on the mighty power. For example, Gandhi movie is about Mahatma Gandhi's struggle against the all-powerful British Empire. The second one is the rags to riches tale. In the introduction of our course, the story of founder of Panasonic, Konosuke Matsushita, who rose from poverty to create a massive business empire, can be a good example of a rags to riches plot. But for this lecture, we will develop a motivational story based on the life of Andrew Carnegie, founder of Carnegie Steel Company, now known as US Steel. Let's start by creating his life snapshot. After research, I found out that in his negative moments or struggle, we can write, he was born in a poor family, son of a struggling handloom weaver. His father's house and factory were auctioned when he was 12. His family moved to America, but there too, his father faced failure. At age 13, Andrew Carnegie left school and started working in a cotton mill. In the positive moments or achievements, we can write he started reading books borrowed from a local library. He made a big profit from his first investment. He became the richest person in the world. As we have completed the life snapshot, we will move to the story journal. The story summary of Andrew Carnegie's life can be stated as a child of a struggling handloom weaver who transforms himself to become the richest person in the world. Our audience for this story could be students, corporates, or entrepreneurs. The learning from Andrew Carnegie's life can be that even during hardship, one should believe in yourself that I will succeed. Now, we will do something different. I will narrate the whole story as you must sharpen your narration skills, and also please pay close attention to the text that will appear across the video describing the stages of the story from our incredible story template. So let's begin. A long time ago, he was born in Scotland. His father was a handloom weaver, while his mother repaired shoes of neighbors to earn money to survive. There were days when his whole family slept without a meal. When he was 12, he saw his father's house and factory being auctioned in front of him. He got very sad that day and promised that one day he will become successful and provide all the luxuries to his parents. Later, his family moved to America with a dream to succeed. But there too, his father faced failures. Their new handloom business also collapsed. When he was only 13, he left school and started working in a cotton mill in the blazing heat of the boiler room, but still was happy he could do his bit to support his family. In every job, he gave his 100%, but he knew to succeed he has to learn more. So he started reading books borrowed from a local library, trying to gain as much knowledge as he can. Even in hard times, he was optimistic, told to himself that one day I will succeed. And that day came in his life in the form of an advice. Impressed by his work, his boss suggested him a business opportunity that required a $500 investment. He got excited, but soon realized he only had $50. He will not be able to create the future he desired. At that time, his mother supported him. She mortgaged her house and gave that money to him in a hope to see her son succeed. And that first investment proved successful. He made a big profit. But more than that, he found a path for his future success. He started investing in businesses. And 30 years after that first investment, that cotton mill worker became the richest person in the world. His name is Andrew Carnegie, founder of Carnegie Steel Company. People now know that company as US Steel. If you also want to succeed in life, don't lose hope, even during difficulties. And even during hardships, just believe in yourself that I will succeed.